Welcome back to another video here on FreeWill Photos. Today, what we're going to do is cut out subjects inside of ON1 Photo RAW. I've showcased this in previous versions of ON1 Photo RAW, but today we're going to actually take a look at it in Photo RAW 2026. Now, if you are an FWP Academy member, you will have access to these files, so if you want to follow along, you can do so. But I highly encourage that you practice this technique on your own images, because ultimately those are the photos that you're going to want to apply this technique to. So learning how to do it on these test files isn't really going to yield you that good of a result, if you understand what I'm saying. So with all that out of the way, let's jump into ON1 Photo RAW. So here we are inside of Photo RAW 2026, and as you can see, we have a few files that we're going to work with, because I think that for something like this, it's helpful to see it work on a few different images. All right. And so the first image we're going to work with is this photo of some flowers that I just photographed in my backyard. So if I double click this, bring it into edit, this is where the real work actually starts on the file. I do want to make a note here that if you are working with raw images, I highly recommend that you edit the file first. So if that's just activating Brilliance AI, or if that's going into tone and color and manipulating it, you should do that first. Now, I'm not going to showcase that because I want to focus more of the attention in today's video on actually cutting out the subject. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. So let's go ahead and remove the background from this image. It's actually really straightforward and simple, but there are a few steps to it. All right. So first thing that you want to do is come over here to the right column. And if your layers is not expanded like this, perhaps your layers is collapsed, just click on the word layers, and then you'll get access to your layers. And I won't go into a deep dive of what this is, but just think of this as different instances of your image stacked on top of each other. In most photo editing software, this is where people would recommend that you create a duplicate, and that way you can save your images or your work and you don't have to worry about messing up your initial file. Well, inside of Photo RAW 2026 and really all Photo RAW versions, you're working non-destructively, and we're not actually cutting away the pixels in the image. We're just hiding them with a mask. And so I wouldn't recommend creating a duplicate, because that's just going to take up extra resources on your computer than you probably need. So instead, what I will recommend you do is create what I like to call a matte layer. And to do that, you'll click on this little paint bucket. And you don't have to do this, but it definitely helps out. All right. You can select any color. Today, I'm just going to go with a red, and I'm going to hit OK. What this does is it fills the layer of the image with red. Now, right now, we have this in the wrong order. And so what I'm going to do is come over to the thumbnail that is red over here, and you'll just select the color that you selected. But you'll click on the thumbnail, and then you'll just drag it down until you get like a little line underneath your original file. And when you do that, it'll go away. And this will come in handy when we actually cut out the image, because if you don't have this, then you get like this weird little checkered board, and it's not always helpful to see where the transparency is happening in the photo. All right. So that's the first step. I do recommend you do that, but all is well. Now, what we'll do is come to our original image, and I'm going to click on the thumbnail to make sure that I have it selected. This is extremely important. If you do not have the right file selected, when you go to this next step that I'm about to show you, it is not going to work the way that you expect. And so make sure that the top layer, or the layer that you want to mask away the background, make sure that that's selected. And you can tell that I have it selected because it's a little bit lighter all the way around in this rectangle than the color fill layer. All right. And so what I'm going to do is click on this little circle and rectangle icon. This is the masking icon. Shouldn't be anything that's unfamiliar to anyone if you've been using ON1. But if you're new, that's the icon that you want to click on. Now, nothing has happened. And Depending on how you have your ON1 set up, when you click this icon, it activates your masking properties. And you may have a floating window that is just floating around inside of ON1, or you may have it set up like myself, where you have masking nested in the right column. Now, I have my system set up for auto collapse, and that just helps me save some screen real estate. But don't worry, if yours is expanded, then all you have to do is click on masking, or I'm sorry, collapsed. All you have to do is click on masking, and then it will expand it. Or if you have it like me, you can just hover over it and it will expand, and that's perfectly fine. Regardless of how you have it set up, the process is going to work the same. I just wanted to make sure I clarified that, because I do get a few questions about why isn't my ON1 looking like yours? And that's really hard for me to answer if I can't see your screen to even understand how you have your ON1 configured. All right. All that to say, once you come into the masking section, what we're going to do is click on background. All right. And what you have to think when you're working on the mask layer is, what do I want to remove when you're using these AI masks? So I'm going to go ahead and click on background, and we'll see what the result is. So if I click it, ON1 is going to think itself through using the AI, and there you go. So we have our result from the background mask, and you can see just from looking at it, it's actually removing some of the subject. And so we need to clean this up a little bit. The way that you can do this inside of Photo RAW 2026, and this is specific to Photo RAW 2026, by the way, you'll come over to your masking properties, and you'll come down to the mask layers section. Now, if yours is collapsed, just click on the text. It's important that you have it expanded so you can see what's actually happening here. Well, we need to add an additional masking tool into our masking layers, so that way we can get the desired outcome of the mask that we want. And so to do that, we're going to come over to the far right side of mask layers, click this plus icon. We'll come down to the brush, and this is going to seem a little counterintuitive, but you're going to click on add. All right. And what we want to do is add back those areas that are missing from our original image. So what you'll notice is when I click on that brush and hit add, and this works for essentially all of the masking tools in here, the brush is just the easiest freeform tool for us to use to correct the masking. But when you click on brush, it's going to add a brush tool above your background mask layer. And now what you can do is come over here and just paint back in all of these areas that are missing. And this could be the way that you fix your image, right? Every image is going to respond differently to that background AI, because the algorithms are going to be different based off of the photo that it's looking at. You may have a really, really dark background, and it may have been easy for ON1 to figure out what it needed to remove or replace or whatever it may be. However, in this one, it had a brighter background, and in the algorithm, it decided to select the subject. All right. Good, bad, and different. This is how you can fix it. All right. Using the brush. And when you get close to the edges, what you can do is hit Command or Control R, and that's going to give you your perfect brush. Now, if you're not a keyboard shortcut user, that's perfectly fine. What you can do is come up to the top. You still have to have the brush tool selected, but if you come up to the top option menu, you'll notice that there's a little brush with some stars above it. That's the perfect brush. This has been inside of ON1 for a very long time. And what this allows you to do is paint close to the edges and bring back information without painting in that background. You can see how this is working here, where I'm getting the edge of that leaf, but I wasn't bringing in the background. It's very, very handy, and I do recommend using it over some of the other refined masking tools inside of ON1. This is my preferred method of cleaning up a mask, and I recommend it to everyone who is doing this type of work. All right. And so you can see we can start to recover the actual subject in the photo. Now, Again, is it perfect? No. But is this the only way that you can cut out a subject inside of ON1? The answer to that is no. Let me show you the second way that you can do this. So what we're going to do is we'll keep this one, and we'll just make sure that we still have this top layer selected, and I'm going to click this little duplicate icon. Now, again, I'm only doing this to showcase the different ways of cutting out a subject inside of ON1. So please just remember, you don't have to do this duplicate option, all right? It's not necessary. But I'm going to go ahead and rename these so it's easy for us to keep up. I'm going to go ahead and double click here, and we will call this one background BG remove. And that just lets us know we use the background removal tool to get this result. I'm going to go ahead and turn off that layer. And then I'm going to come up here to our new layer, and we're going to use the Quick Mask AI brush. So I'm just going to go ahead and double click here, and I'm going to call this Quick Mask for simple visibility sake. And I need to reset this mask because right now it's just showing me the masking tool or the outcome of the background removal, which we don't need anymore. And so what I'm going to do is click on this mask layer or this mask thumbnail for that's currently on the quick mask. And then I'm going to come back to my masking tool. And this time I'm going to come up to target mask. And I want to come to this 3-line menu and click on it. And then I want to come down to reset. And this is going to reset the entire mask, and we'll see our original image. This is where I want to start because this is essentially simulating where you would start with your initial image. And so this is where I want to be. Now, I'm going to come back to mask layers, and you'll notice that right now I don't have anything in mask layers. It is actually expanded. There's just nothing in there. And that's evident because we can see our entire image. And so what I'm going to do is click on the plus icon next to mask layers. And this time, instead of going to that background selection, I'm going to click on Quick Mask AI, and then I'm going to come down to subtract. A general rule of thumb, whenever you work with the masking tools inside of the layer masks or inside of the effects module, the very first mask that you apply, you should always select the one that says default. It's the easiest way of explaining the masking. And then from there, it gets a little bit more complex, or tricky, but it's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click there. And ON1's going to analyze the image. And again, your image is going to be analyzed differently than it's analyzing this particular photo. But I get this little crosshair. So if you've never used the Super Select AI tool or the Quick Mask AI brush, I'll link a video down in the description box. So if you want to go and learn more about how this tool works, you can do that. But what I'm going to do instead is just go ahead and create a rectangular marquee or a box around the flower. And you can see it turns blue. I'm selecting the entire flower. This is my preferred method of using this particular tool. And so I'm going to let it go. And now I have that selected. To confirm this selection, what I need to do is come up to the top right of ON1 where this blue check mark is and click that. Now, what ON1 is going to do is it's going to cut away the flowers. And this is the opposite of what I actually want. Now, there's ways of fixing this, but the easiest way of fixing this is to come back over to our masking section. And you're going to go to the target mask, all right? You don't want to go to mask layers. You want to go to target mask. And then you'll click on the 3-line menu again. Down here at the bottom of the 3-line menu, or at the top, I should say, of the 3-line menu, we have an option for invert. When I click this, I'm now going to get the selection the way that I want. And what you'll notice is I'm not missing as much of the flower as I was in the background removal option. And so it's always good to know different techniques of being able to cut out your subjects inside of ON1 Photo RAW, because one technique may not yield the result that you actually want, and another technique may actually yield the result that you want. And so that's the reason why I'm showing these two options. Now, to clean up this mask, we're going to do it the exact same way. We're going to use the mask layers, click the plus icon. Oh, I collapsed it. We'll click the plus icon, and then we'll hover over brush, and we're going to click on add, because we want to add back the flower. And so if I paint over these areas, you can see I'm now bringing back the flower in those areas that were transparent. Got a little bit too much there. Command and Z removes the last painted selection, and I can just paint over this. So that's how you can go about cleaning up the mask. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is there's some halos here, and I want to be very clear. With this particular photo, it was a very bright background, and where you have, I guess, areas of extreme contrast, it's going to cause a little bit of haloing, right? That's just the challenge of cutting out something that was dark against a very bright background, unless you cut into the actual subject. Now, what ON1 does give us is a tool called Refine Mask. And so if you come back over to masking, you can access Refine Mask both in the target mask and in the mask layers. So where you see this little 3-line menu, all you got to do is click it, and then you can click on Refine Mask. Now, these are kind of like some hidden settings that really do help with editing the overall photo. So I'm going to do a lot better job of showcasing the Refine Mask in future videos, but today we're going to take just like a really quick look, because the only tool that I really want to showcase here is the Shift Edge. Now, this is not a catch-all slider. It's a helpful slider, but the image that you're cutting out really is going to make a difference based off of how well you're going to be able to refine that edge and get the cutout that you're looking for. All right. I know that there's a lot of angst about being able to cut out subjects and get the most refined look, and that's kind of where this Shift Edge does help. But just keep in mind, this is not the final catch-all. There's a lot of tools that you would have to use to really clean up sometimes based off of your image. But I will show you how this works, and we'll see if this cleans up the edge. And so if I pull this to the left, you can see it starts to expand the edge of the mask and include more of that bright area. We don't really want that. So we'll go the opposite direction. It starts to make the cutout of the edges not as defined. And I'm not a huge fan of that. So, you use this sparingly and figure out what makes the most sense. Another way that you can try to refine the edge is by using the levels. And this is kind of like a trial and error type of thing. But usually if you pull down on the bright, like if the area that you're trying to remove is a bright halo, you can pull down on the right node, the most right node, or the bright on the level section. And then you can play around with this middle slider, and you can see how that starts to remove that halo. But you got to kind of be careful with this, because the more you play with it, the more you may not like the result. But this is a way of cleaning up those halos and refining them to get the most out of your edit. So again, pay attention to the type of image you're trying to remove the background from. If it's really bright, just know that you're probably going to result in some form of a halo. And I think that we cleaned it up pretty decently here, but we are missing some sections. So I would have to come back in with a brush and paint those things in. It's going to take a little bit of cleanup, but it is doable. All right. And so I'll go ahead and hit OK, and we'll say that this is pretty good. And so let's go ahead and take a look at what the background removal tool has done. So if I turn off the quick mask one and turn back on the background removal one, this is again without any real refinement, but it did select it pretty decent. And then this is the quick mask one. now what we're going to do is kind of take rapid fire at working with some of these other photos, because I think that it's a good idea just to see how the technique can be applied against a variety of images. I just wanted to showcase with the first photo there. So let's go ahead and jump back into ON1 and take a look at that. All right, so this photo should seem a little familiar. If you caught my last video about removing the background from a photo, this is the example file that I use. So let's go ahead and see how Photo RAW 2026 works with this image. What we're going to do is come over to masking, and we're going to make, or I'm sorry, layers. We're going to click on the mask icon, and then we're going to come over to masking. We're going to come down to first we'll start with background. Let's go ahead and click background and see what ON1 does with this image using the background selection. And so you can see it did a pretty decent job of cutting out the people. It did it relatively quick. And I think that this is okay, but not quite where I think we want to be. So let's come back up here to masking. We're going to reset this mask. And then we're going to come to mask layers, and we will come down to quick mask AI and then subtract default. And so now that I have ON1 thinking this through, I'm going to get my little crosshair, and I'm just going to do the rectangular marquee like I was showcasing previously. And this tool on this particular image, it doesn't want to select everybody in the photo that I would want selected. And so this is where you would have to come in individually and click on all of these areas to make sure that they're selected. And so I will click on a majority of these. I'm not going to click on everything because that would probably take way more time. And again, the technique is going to be different for every photo, as you're noticing, and it's going to be different for every tool. And so we'll say that that's good. I'll get this guy's little hand there. We'll say that that's good. We'll come over here to the blue check mark and we will click that. And then we'll let ON1 do its thing. Again, it gives us the inverse, and you can see that Quick Mask AI probably wasn't the best tool for this type of selection in this case. But nonetheless, what you can do is come over here or come over to the target mask. And then you can click invert and you get something very similar, but you'll still have to clean this up with a brush. And so just keep that in mind. Not every selection tool is going to give you the best result, but knowing how to use the tools in combination with one another will give you more flexibility to get the result you're after. Let's go ahead and take a look at another file. All right, now this image probably resembles more of what you would want to do when it comes to separating and cutting out a background, because this is like a portrait shot on a very simple backdrop. And you'll notice that we have very defined edges coming around here, but look at the fall off on the shoulder area back here. Those are the areas that typically need the most work to clean up. So let's see how ON1 handles this. What we'll do is we'll come over to our layers, click on the masking icon, and then we're going to come up to masking, and then we'll come down to background because we want to remove the background. And so we'll let ON1 think itself through for a second here, and it gives us a pretty good result. Now, let me get my zoom tool, and we'll just take a look around the edges here. So you'll notice there's some haloing going on here. Again, those things can be cleaned up with the masking brush. You could use the perfect brush, and this will definitely clean up those little areas. And that's the tool that I would probably go with. But then you have areas like the beard, and this is where you really have to finesse the tools inside of ON1 to get the result that you're looking for. You can use the refined masking tools, and those tools are sometimes not as robust as I would like them to be. And you can't always get the result that you're going for, but you can get relatively close. All right. And then the same thing around hair here, but hair is one of those things you have to kind of pick and choose how you want to do that masking and get the best outcome. Now, what I will notice or call out here is notice that it did cut out in between the glasses here. And so it is doing a pretty good job at finding the background and identifying what should be foreground and what should be background. It did miss a little bit right here in between the top portion of the glasses arm and the lens here. But again, you are the human in the loop. Whenever you use an AI tool, it's your responsibility to clean up the selection. The AI tools are just there to help us get the selection a little bit faster, because if I had to pin tool all the way around this, that would take a lot longer than clicking that button and letting ON1 get rid of a majority of it for me. All right. And then we can also look down here, and again, you can use the brush tool to paint that back in. What did we learn from using masking tools inside of ON1 and cutting out? Well, one, it is possible to cut out people from backgrounds using the tools inside of ON1 Photo RAW. But you're going to have to take some time to learn how to use all of the masking capabilities inside of ON1 in order to get the result, or at least to give yourself the most flexibility so you can get the best result that you possibly can when working inside of ON1. Now, is this something that you're going to learn overnight? No, it's not. It's something that you're going to have to practice. You're going to have to play around with your own images and figure out where your knowledge gaps are. Now, I'm always happy to help answer questions, and that's really one of the things that I do with my FreeWill Photos one-on-one training. Again, the link for that is in the description box. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that that's the only way that you can learn, all right? But if you have a very specific question or you have a unique challenge with photo editing software, that is a resource that's available to you, so you can learn how to use the software a little bit faster instead of trying to scour through YouTube or find some course that's going to give you, the master plan, because sometimes you just need one-on-one training. You need someone to look over your shoulder and say, click this, don't click that, or maybe try this tool, or someone who just understands what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And that's the benefit of signing up for a one-on-one training call. All right. I really do my best to help everyone get the result that they're looking for. I can't guarantee it because I don't know what you're trying to accomplish. And, perhaps ON1 just isn't the software that will help you accomplish that. And that's another thing that I help out with in the training call, is suggesting other programs that may be able to accomplish the thing that you're trying to. So that way you're not doing it alone. So again, if that's something you're interested in, consider signing up using the link in the description box below. Now, if you are interested in picking up ON1 Photo RAW, I imagine if you're watching this video, you probably already have ON1 Photo RAW. But let's say you're trying to debate on picking up Photo RAW 2026. If you want to save a little bit of money, consider using the affiliate link and coupon code in the description box below. I do make a commission from everyone who uses it, but you get a discount at the same time. It is a win-win for everyone involved. If you got questions, drop them in the comment section or just send me an email. I do get back to my emails. With that, until next time, I want you to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.